All right, golfers, welcome back to the New Nine Golf Podcast. Today we have a very special guest, and it's someone I'm super excited to talk to because it's our first rep. It's our first employee through a manufacturer. A good friend of ours at Golf Tech, Josh Fleming, hooked us up with our guest today. He is the green grass manager at Callaway Golf, Mr. Josh Brunner. Josh, welcome to the New Nine Golf Podcast.
Thanks, Brandon. Good seeing you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm glad we were able to get you on camera, and you threw me for a loop when you said, hold on, let me just put a shirt on and I'll come up on camera. I thought that's so fitting for the COVID world that we live in and working from home in pajama pants or a dress shirt on top, that we're on the same playing field when it comes to the home office.
Yeah, you know what? Different environment for sure. And I'm always one for, the golf shirt and steamed, golf pants. I was a golf pro for 5 years. So I know all that matters. Where you get pretty comfortable working at home in shorts and then t-shirts and pretty lax, but definitely miss being out there for sure.
I hear you. So where are you in Toronto, or whereabouts are we getting you right now?
Yeah, just right in Toronto, kind of right in the middle of it, just about a half an hour from the office. So been pretty tough, living in the city, living in a busy neighborhood during the pandemic, and grateful for any outdoor space that we can get out to. But right in Toronto.
For our listeners that don't know, or maybe some of the American listeners, right now, Ontario, or is it all Ontario that golf is illegal?
I guess you can say that it's illegal. Right now, you cannot golf at a golf course in Ontario, unfortunately.
It's crazy. It's blows my mind that, COVID aside, just that the rest of the world golf, you can go golf with a cohort or family member, or there's rules in place that, last year it was proven that it is a safe sport. It doesn't, contract COVID. And now here's Ontario kind of on their own island, not allowing golf.
Yeah. I mean, it's been unfortunate, I guess, look back at last year when golf was part of, I think, majority of provinces kind of phase one reopening, right? And the governing bodies, PGA of Canada, all the parties involved, all the stakeholders did, I thought, such a great job at allowing us to golf and putting in all of these new policies and procedures to make it safe. And I think in Ontario specifically, we had 20 million rounds last year, not one case, from going and playing golf. And you're right, golf is, last year really proved to us as a company, but just us as golfers, that golf is really important. Being able to get outside, it's almost naturally distance, right? I'll take the left side, you take the right, we'll meet up at the green. But putting rules in place, like hang out in your car up until 10 minutes before your tee off time, at first golfers were maybe a little bit, hey, I want to go putt. But eventually, as we got used to it, we were just grateful that we could golf. So it's been tough this spring. I mean, we were here in Ontario open for maybe 2 or 3 weeks. Cases were increasing at a pretty alarming rate, maybe 10%. I think from a week or two there, I was getting pretty scared. And again, being in Toronto, being in the core of it, where case count was pretty high, so kind of understood that and the new rules they put in place. But you look at golf, being outside, the importance on mental health, getting the fresh air. I mean, in the city, a lot of people are stuck in apartments and condos, and now with the temperatures being more seasonal and more enjoyable, it's been tough not to be able to go out and play golf. And again, I know that Golf Ontario, Golf Canada, PGA of Canada, all the pros, we've really been pushing for them to be able to operate and get everyone back to work.
Well, let's dive a little bit into your business. So you are the greengrass manager at Callaway Golf. Give me a little idea about what you do for Callaway.
Yeah, so greengrass being all of our golf courses, all of our facilities and partners across Canada. So my main role is to manage all of our sales and marketing efforts at the greengrass level. So whether that be all of our staff, professionals, brand ambassadors at facilities across the country, managing that program, our custom fitting program in Canada, our field marketing representatives, our custom fitters, Callaway custom fitters across the country. Also work with a lot of our PGA zones. So all of our sponsorships with our zones and pro-ams. They actually host a couple of our own pro-ams that we put on, haven't for the last couple of years because of COVID and travel restrictions. But yeah, basically everything that we're involved in at the greengrass level, the golf course level, I play a little part in all of it.
And have you guys noticed in business a big influx in golf equipment sales and that type of stuff? Like, is your business booming the way I think golf is booming?
I think it's pretty well in line. Yeah. March, April last year was pretty scary, but I think it was scary for everyone, right? And it doesn't matter what business you're from, but in every industry, it was just the unknown, right? We just didn't know what the next week looked like, what the next month. It was all about trying to set ourselves up to survive through this pandemic. But again, as we talked about earlier, as golf courses opened up and people, once they learn that, hey, I can't take a vacation this year, or my softball league got canceled. I used to golf. Maybe I'll get back into it. Oh, my buddy Jim golfs. So what we saw May, June, July, as people were getting more comfortable, going to play, getting fit, we saw a huge demand spike for, your junior sets, your package sets, your kind of beginner intermediate sets. Even our Big Bertha lineup that we came out towards the fall of last year was more geared towards the beginner golfer. But we saw demand for that product just spike as soon as it was announced. So yeah, our business, again, it was tough there for a couple months, really not knowing what was going to happen. But along with golf, it's really done well over the last 10, 12 months.
That's good to hear. How did you get into the golf industry?
Well, I guess my first job was high school, washing clubs and washing golf carts. That's how I got in. I think typical for a lot of golfers, at a young age. But at a local resort, I'm from a very small town, 2 hours north of Toronto. But yeah, I got a job in the summers just washing carts and clubs. Eventually worked my way into the pro shop and got to know some of the pros at the course and thought this was pretty cool. Maybe I could give this a go. Ended up turning professional in 2011 as a member of the PGA of Canada. And then did that for 5 years. And then, I've been with Callaway for the last 3. So I think I've been in the golf industry for well over 10, 15 years. It's been awesome.
That's good to hear. I know a lot of people in the golf industry don't get to golf a lot. Do you get to golf more now that you're with Callaway than you did as a professional?
Yeah, maybe a little bit. One thing I do miss is being at the club and working, let's say, an 8 to 5 shift or even 6 to 6 all day if there's an event. A lot of times you just grab a cart and go find a few empty holes and play for a half hour or an hour or whatever you want, right? And that's one part of golf I like, and I still do like, but just the ability to go out and just have fun. And it doesn't have to be, Saturday morning at 7 a.m. with 3 of your guys with a lot of stress and maybe some money on the line. But I did that more often, just the ability to go to the range for half an hour and just hit shots or walk onto the putting green. Don't do that quite often, but I'd say now play a lot with work. Obviously, a lot of travel that we do. We have a family cottage, again, just north of the city, and I play at our little 9-hole cottage course every now and then just with the family. But about maybe a dozen full 18-hole rounds a year Saturday morning with the college buddies. I still try and get in every year. So.
Are you keeping a handicap, or what kind of golf are you playing to?
Haven't been able to post this year, unfortunately, with the lockdown. I think last year I was at a 5.5, probably lower than I should be. What kind of golfer, growing up, playing my mom, again, small town, she'd make a few trips into the bigger town twice a week, and she'd drop me off at the golf course, and I wouldn't play, but I'd hit the range for about an hour, a couple of buckets of balls, but I'd spend 1 or 2 hours at the putting green. And it was this big putting green, practice green, actually 5 tiers, 6 tiers. And I would just throw a couple of balls down and pick a hole and, take a few chips and go putt it out. And I would do that for hours. And I did that for years. And even around our house growing up, we had some extra land there where I could take a lob wedge. My parents trusted me enough to take a lob wedge and chip around, but I can spend hours and days around greens. I think, that's a big part of the game is the creativity and the finesse. I'm not a long ball hitter. But yeah, what type of golfer am I? I think just creative, right? Try and keep the big numbers out of the bag. make a ton of birdies, but if I can break 80 all summer long, I'm more than happy.
It's funny that you mentioned spending hours and hours at a practice green. That's what I would assume a former professional to tell me, that golf is, you make up so many strokes in and around the green that I think a lot of guys spend so much time on the driving range, hitting a million drivers, trying to hit a draw or hit it further, that all of that score is made up around the green. So if there's any like double-digit handicap guys listening, you heard it here from Josh, to go spend a ton of time at the practice green, because that's where you're going to get to become a better golfer.
Yeah, I think it's important to spend the time at the range. To dial in your swing, make sure your clubs are dialed in, get your yardages. If it's before the round, before the round, it's more warm up, right? Let's get warmed up. It's not really time to practice. It's let's get warmed up. So, you can see where the ball's moving. You can get, comfortable with that. But yeah, a lot of people, I bet you listeners, if you go to your local driving range the next couple of days and you drive past the putting green, you might have one or two golfers on the putting green practice area. You're going to have a full range. Again, important, but you got to spend time on the short. With Callaway being able to go to events and see Roger Cleveland and Sean Toulon talk about the importance of it, and just to hear stories from them and guys on tour. Huge emphasis on short game. There's a lot of ways to get close to the hole. You can drive it left, you can drive it right, you can hit it high, but it's about how you get, in the green and eliminating those double bogeys, triple bogeys that'll help your score, immensely.
You brought up the PGA Tour and some pretty big names that you dropped. What's kind of your experience been? Have you had an experience in dealing with any PGA Tour guys going to PGA Tour events? What's your experience there?
I had a lot of experience in a prior job, but with Callaway, I had one good experience with Adam Hadwin. So I believe it was 2018 when I joined the team. We started this online social promotion along with the PGA of Canada called Patronize Your PGA Professional. So it was a social media play for consumers to post a picture of any Callaway product they buy at a green grass facility at a pro shop, and to tag their pro, tag their facility, and hashtag Patronize Your PGA Professional. We have weekly and monthly draws for equipment and other prizes. But when you post, you're entered into the main draw at the end of the year, opportunity to play with Adam Hadwin. So yourself, your host professional, and a buddy, right, or a partner. 2019, we started sponsoring the PGA of Canada Head Professional Championship, hosted by the Wigwam down in Phoenix, Arizona. Adam Hadwin happens to live in Scottsdale, just down the road. So it actually all worked out, and the group from Whitlock Golf Club in Montreal were winners in 2019, and they came down and met up with Adam at the golf course and played 18 holes with him. Loved it. I think the professional Greg Cuddill, actually one of our staffers from Whitlock, was in the group, and I think he had it. He was beating Adam by a shot or two after 9, and then Adam just lit it up, and I think went 3 or 4 birdies in a row. Just so he didn't get beat by a club pro. Greg is a good player for sure. But yeah, it was cool to see him interact with the guys. I know Adam. I've been knowing Adam for a few years now, and he's just a laid back guy. He's not all about the fame. He loves golf. And even after he played with that foursome, again, Head Pro Championship, PGA of Canada was going on at the same time, and he hung around the patio, and a lot of pros from BC came down for the tournament, and he knew a lot of them. So he just hung around and had a couple of beers, and usually after a player engagement, they're kind of looking at their watch and looking at you, and you're calling up the car. But he just, put his feet up and hung out, and it was like he was just a normal guy, in which they are. They all are. They're just normal guys who love golf and love to compete and love to win.
That's cool to hear. It's always good. I'm always scared to meet my heroes or my golf idols, because you put them in such a spotlight, and chances are they'll almost always let you down based on the pedestal that you put them on, right? But it's good to hear that Adam is a good guy, and especially with his fellow Canadian pros, right?
Exactly.
Have you had a chance to go to any US events in the past, like maybe pre-COVID?
You know what? Just the RBC Heritage for a couple of years. Good event, right? in Hilton Head, Harbour Town's a fun little golf course. Again, kind of my type of golf course. Not that I'm a shot maker, but emphasis on game and not so much the long ball, right? But no, I've got a few on the bucket list. Masters for sure. This week looks pretty cool. PGA Championship. That course looks awesome. Played around in the U.S. quite a bit for work, but yeah, I've yet to go to a grander scale PGA Tour event.
Well, how do we make that happen? I assume you got a couple of connections you can make a phone call to say, hey, give me a couple of those passes for Saturday, Sunday at Augusta.
Yeah. Let me just text the first name. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I mean, I think down the road for sure. Obviously, high demand. I think I've started signing up for the lottery. I've had one opportunity to go. It was while I was in the university, and I had to have an exam that week or something.
Brutal.
It limited me to go down, and I kind of regret that looking back at it. But still plenty of time to head down for sure.
I was gonna talk to you a little bit about the clubs that Callaway's put together for this year. We review stuff on our YouTube channel. We've done kind of some head-to-head comparisons or just trying out new stuff from a consumer perspective. And I'm not just saying this because you're on the show from Callaway, but like Callaway has blown my expectations out of the water. And that's not to say anything about their previous stuff. I think a lot of golfers have bias to certain clubs that they'll play, right? And I think in this year, and it's been so eye-opening doing these experiments with hitting clubs, that the Callaway lineup is like, it's legit like some of the best clubs I've hit in my life, like specifically like the Apex Pros. I was blown away by those irons. What's kind of Callaway doing? Are they doing anything differently? I imagine the manufacturing world is such a competitive market, and there's so much technology behind it. Can you give us a little insight behind some of the technology that Callaway has released this year?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest themes and the biggest next step that we've done the last 3-4 years, 3 years really is a jump in using AI, artificial intelligence technology. So, when I say that, people are like, what do you mean? The stuff that's in Tesla to drive you around, or, the robots, or, on the movies. And it's similar to how, yes, Tesla and how it'll kind of read, the streets and traffic and kind of figure out the best way to your direction, even Google Maps, Netflix, it'll read what you've been watching and what you are not watching and what are you watching over again, and kind of start to suggest things, right, based on the inputs. How we've used AI in golf is, prior to using AI and making golf products, is, let's say, a driver, for example, and we first brought out AI with our Flash driver in 2019, Epic Flash. But before using AI, we develop, let's say, a face of a driver, for example, and we'd use all of the CADs and computer software programs that were pretty typical, and you can find it in any other, design process. But we'd make 3 or 4 faces, and we can kind of get a pretty good idea of what's going to work based on the materials used, make 3 or 4 faces, and then go test them out and say, well, this is the one based on our robot testing and player testing. Well, what we've been able to do with AI in our drivers, and now we're seeing it into our other, irons and hybrids, but it can create a driver with AI, a driver face specifically. We can start off with a boring, no curvature to the face behind it, take one hit, the computer can say, well, that was okay. But the computer can now take a tweak to that face, take a second hit and say, well, that was a bit better. And then now let's change this part of the face. Oh, that one wasn't so good. Let's go back. Basically, it can go through all these iterations. We can say, hey, we want ball speed, low spin, and consistency. The computer will say, AI will say, okay, I got it. Let me just work on a few more faces. Our Epic Flash driver went through about 15,000 faces before we got to the one. And the computer just said, hey, I can't make anything better. This is the best one, given what you told me about ball speed and ball flight laws and physics and everything else. This is the best face. And we took a look at it, and it was the opposite. Our engineers would have never thought to do something like that. Usually it's a thin center and hollow and a little bit thicker around that center. But this face on the back had waves everywhere. It was thin here, thick here. Like, looking at it face value, you would never guess why, certain parts were put here. But the computer said, hey, given your materials, the outputs we need, this is the best face that we can make. So now we've put that into not only drivers, fairways, and then do irons as well. Apex irons were actually made with AI faces. So the AI has been a pretty big push, and we're fairly certain that we're the only company to make a consumer product using AI. Again, there's AI out there and more in software, but in terms of making, a phone or a consumer product, we are still certain that we're the only company out there using AI to make that product. So that's been our latest push, and I mean the benefits are just amazing.
It's incredible. Like I've one of those guys that for so many years have been so biased to certain clubs, and being able to hit the new Callaway lineup, like I stand behind it big time. And we have no affiliation, but the product is so legit that if you're in the market to buy stuff, at least hit it or compare it to the other stuff out there, because it especially those the Apex Pros, man. I've been dreaming of them ever since we did our review. That's for sure.
Well, yeah, and Apex Pro is a funny one because we started that we call it the player's distance iron, right? So it's an iron that is forgiving. It's going to give you high ball speeds, but looking down at it, it looks like a player's iron. It's not a blade. It's not a forged cavity back. It is forged, but it's packed with a ton of technology. But for someone like me who, I can hit it pretty well, but I'm not that consistent. I need a little bit of forgiveness and maybe some more distance. But looking down at it, it fits my eye. It does exactly what I want it to do in terms of flight and workability. But that Apex Iron, Apex Pro, they really were the leaders in that category of irons. And it's been so far with 4 or 5 months under its belt, performing very, very well out in the field.
Do you see a transition in professional golfers going from a traditional blade, like say the MB, now switching into a player's distance iron? Or I have so many conversations with people that say, should I hit blades? I'm like, dude, you're like a 15 cap. Like your mishit is so wide versus, a touring pro that would be playing that. So I'm just interested from a Callaway perspective, are guys switching from the MB to like the Apex Pro?
Yeah, I think every year you're seeing less and less blades on tour. I mean, there's only so much you can do with the blade, but our Apex MB that we introduced last fall, it has a weight port right behind, the center of the club that lets you better fine tune the weight of that head for swing weight purposes, and it's right behind where you make impact. So just increase or decrease the weight, it doesn't really have too much effect on that center of gravity. You can better locate that CG with that plug. So there's some room for MBs to develop, but I mean, tour pros, they don't want to struggle out there. They've got enough to struggle with, playing in front of the crowds and all the stress. They want to know that, hey, if I miss it by a hair, which they do sometimes, golf pros aren't perfect all the time. They just aren't as bad as us, right? We're just worse golfers. They're really benefiting from some of these clubs like the Apex Pro that still looks appealing to them, to their eye, because that's important for them. But they're giving the same, ball flight characteristics as an MB. So definitely over the last 2 years, you are seeing less and less blades in PGA Tour players' bags, and more going towards the Apex Pro, X-Forge, that type of club.
No, that's cool to hear. I assumed kind of similar, but it's interesting to hear from the manufacturer to confirm that. I'm interested in your golf experience, lifetime. Is there one course you've played before, or a couple courses that stand out that's like, man, this is the best course, best facility I've ever been able to play?
Yeah, maybe give you a couple. I think Cabot for sure. That's an easy one. Been up there a couple of times now, and phenomenal property, phenomenal experience, totally unique, something that you can't get anywhere in Canada, anywhere else in Canada. I've been fortunate enough to go over to Ireland a few years back and play a bunch of golf courses, but playing Cabot made me feel like Ireland, Scotland a little bit more than Toronto. Obviously,
Really? Yeah.
Being right on the water and link style. Cabot links is very good. Cliffs is great as well. In 2018, we actually had a Callaway Pro-Am where our staffers could come out and bring some guests of theirs at Kananaskis Country Golf Course, just an hour and a bit west of Calgary. And for me, going out there the first time, I had never been to the mountains, so I think that added to the experience as well. But Bob Paley and his team, they do a great job at Kananaskis. I played the kid course and a few holes on Lorette, but the kid course really kind of, blew me away. Just the views of the mountains and then the holes and just the environment, that was just unbelievable for me. So I tell everyone that I know, whoever's going out west, hey, if you're playing golf, make sure you play here. I think those two for me are definitely some of my top in Canada. Ireland was awesome, and I know a lot of golfers who haven't done Scotland, haven't done Ireland. If you ever get the opportunity to go over, do it. There's tons of great golf, and you don't have to play the big ticket names as well. There's a ton of good golf out there, and it's just a different environment. You go down to a U.S. private club in Jupiter or Palm Beach or California, and you're just treated a little bit differently than you are at Ballybunion, where it's a starter and you got a caddy, or there's no buggies, you're pulling your bag. It's just a very different experience, and I find it just a little bit more core golf, right? You're just there, play golf, have a good time. Not that playing in West Palm Beach is bad or anything, but definitely a different experience. Yeah,
that's funny. Yeah, it's cool that you mentioned Kananaskis, because we were there actually. We weren't at Kananaskis Golf Course, but we were at the neighboring course at Brewster's Kananaskis Ranch. We were there, another course in the area. But Bob Paley's actually been on the show. He's been on the podcast before.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, so shout out to Bob Paley. He's a good personal friend and a good golf friend. That he's a consummate professional, and he's what every golf course would be, thrilled to have a part of their facility. So shout out to Kananaskis. And yeah, if you've never been to the mountains before, it's worldly. Like being out west, meeting in Calgary, I've been to the mountains a million times. You forget how cool they are until you reach that peak over the hill. You're like, oh my God, now we're inside the mountains. You're driving through the mountains. So it's amazing. And we're going to shoot a bunch of content out there this summer for our YouTube channel. And yeah, if the East Coast too, I've yet to been to Cabot. My wife's from PEI, so we go to PEI a bit, but it's just not even a similar experience from what I can understand from Cabot. So it's on the hit list for sure if they can open up the bubble.
Yeah, well, I think they did a pretty good job of protecting, themselves and having that bubble. And I know it was great for a lot of people from Nova Scotia, PEI, New Brunswick, going to be able to go play Cabot. Usually it's just book solid. But, getting that access to the course last year. But yeah, it's a whole different, it's about a 3.5-4 hour drive from the airport, but they come pick you up and shuttle. It's just a great experience, and I think it should be on everyone's bucket list. If you're Toronto, New York, Montreal, even out west, right? Just come over and make a trip out of it.
We're almost done here. I got 2 more questions for you. So the New Nine brand, New Nine is something you've probably said a million times in your life, and you might just not have paid attention to it. It's when you have just a terrible front nine. You shoot 50, you have 3 or 4 lost balls, you just can't figure it out. So you're finishing the nine, you're just motivating yourself. Okay, New Nine. Let's have something on the back nine. Golf is so similar to life, right? That so many good things happen, but chances are a lot more bad happens in life. So New Nine isn't just golf. It's also that life brand that, shit happens, and it's kind of how we deal with it to make ourselves better moving forward. So that's kind of what New Nine is about. So I'm interested in kind of a 2-part question. Have you had a New Nine on the golf course that you can remember? Maybe you had played in a tournament or a PGA qualifier or something that, you made some good from bad. And the second part would be a New Nine in life. Maybe there's something that's beaten you up that you've been able to kind of persevere and turn into a good situation.
Yeah, I can think of one New Nine on the golf course. It was more like a new 33, 32 for me. To be a member of the PGA of Canada, PGA of Ontario, they actually host a qualifying event. Back in the day, it was once a year and down at Cambridge Golf Club. And for all you PGA of Ontario professionals listening, you're well familiar or well aware of Cambridge Golf Club. But I was down trying to play in, started on the back nine, and you have to shoot. Back then, it was 155 total for 2 days. So not crazy. I mean, at that time, I was maybe a 2 or 3 handicap. Nothing. I was never a great golfer, but it's pressure, right? You're there with all the other guys trying to play in, caddies, the whole 9 yards, 36 in one day. It was tough to shoot that number. And my strategy was just kind of play safe and fairways and greens, make pars. Anyway, par 5, 10th, start on the 10th. So my first hole, 4-iron, 6-iron wedge on, make my 2-putt par, away you go. Second hole, hazard left. I think I hit a hybrid off the tee, got into some trees. They've got these really, short, stubby trees that just annoy the heck out of you. But anyway, I put in the trees and I thought I could get over, clipped a branch, came down, couldn't get up and down. I ended up making a triple on my second hole. Next hole, par 3, hit a pin high into a bunker, kind of elevated, so couldn't get up and down. It just ran away, made another bogey. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, okay, I'm 4 over after 3. What am I going to do? And I just went to my caddy, like, we're here all day. We've got 33 holes left. Let's just have fun, play normal, boring golf. And I think I went 78, 76, not a bunch of birdies, but just a boatload of pars, no big numbers. But it was at that moment when I was, 3-4 over after 3 holes. And we just kind of said, let's just have fun. Let's just play boring golf and make putts. And not that I made a lot of long putts, but I think that is my new 9 on the golf course. But like I said,
well, good on you for persevering. I've been in that situation before where you're, you hype yourself up, and you're probably thinking about this round for the 2 weeks leading up to it, right?
Yeah.
And then to make a number out of the gate, like a triple on 2, it's like, oh my God, I've waited so long to get here, and I'm gonna triple this hole. I probably birdied a million times. Like, What about your new 9 in life?
That's also one thing about golf too. Like, the next shot, like, the ball doesn't know you. It doesn't care who you are. The hole doesn't know you. It doesn't matter what you did the hole before. I mean, for you and I, our swings are different almost every single time, right? So that triple, that rough start 1, 2, 3 holes in has literally nothing to do with your next 15 holes. Your mindset for sure could be a little bit troubled, but as for physical, the golf ball on the hole, they don't care, right? You could have made a 10, but you're going to make a birdie the next hole, and that happens, right? We see it all the time. All those scorecards in the PGA Tour, circles and squares and no pars. It's just golf's a weird sport, and I love it for that.
Yeah, I hear you. What about your new 9 in life? Can you think of anything off the top of your head?
That's a tough one. My new 9 in life. That's tough. Can't think of one for you, Brandon.
No, that's fair. It's one of those, you'll think of something tonight, you'll be like, oh my God, I have had a new life. It's a pretty personal question, but it's just one of those things that we try to relate the brand with golf, that a lot of shit happens in golf, and chances more shit happens in life, that it's there's a lot of mental side behind it. But I appreciate you sharing your story for the golf course. I'm glad that you got your card out of all of that. So maybe we'll tie that into 2, that it was a golf new 9 and a personal new 9, because it wasn't just the playing exam you were playing for. It was, there's like a career on the line here, and you had you not have shot that well, who knows where you might be today.
I may have not even been able to join the PGA. It really was, life changing. But I think also to add, it's all on you, right? And that's another aspect of golf. It's very unique in sports where it's not a team sport where if you play hockey, you can rely on your defenseman to get the puck if you messed up, or you can rely on someone else to have your team win, and therefore you can walk away winning. Golf is one where it's all on you. Like, if you want to get better, it's up to you to practice, to get fit, to just play better, right? No one's really going to be pushing you, and they can motivate you for sure, but you're going to be the one out there turning that 3 over, 4 over through 2 or 3 holes into hopefully a successful day. So, and that's life too. Life is all on you. I think, growing up and grateful for, the parents and helping out, and they kind of push you on the right path, but eventually you're let loose, and you've got to, figure it out. And if you're down in the dumps or you need that new 9, you just got to think like, hey, this is all on me. If I'm the one here that's going to make the decisions and actually act on those, whether it's personal, career, or golf, or just your inner circle, your relationships. It's all going to come down to you. No one's No one's going to force you to do anything. It's all on you.
Like it. That's great perspective. I appreciate hearing that. It's good to hear that, it's golf isn't a team sport. So that's what makes it like so unique, right? That there's not a lot of people to blame out there. And that's the same as life, that no one's going to do it for you. No one's going to hold your hand and make sure you succeed. No. Sure, you'll have a support system, but then at the end of the day, you got to look in the mirror and be like, you know what? I did everything I could to do my best. So I appreciate you sharing that with us, Josh. Thanks, man.
Yeah, no problem.
We're almost done here. A couple quick little fun questions. I imagine being in Toronto, you're a Leafs fan.
I am.
Are they going to win the cup this year or what?
They're looking pretty good, but it's been a weird year. Like I've only been watching Leafs and Habs and Jets and Oilers. I think I watched a bit of the Carolina game and maybe a bit of the Boston game. I mean, they look good too. It's tough to say. I think we've got a good chance as long as Matthews and Marner, Campbell, once we got our goaltending figured out. I think we've got a pretty good chance based on the season, but who knows? It feels like a whole new season once we move on to a new division.
I'm cheering that David Riddick gets the call up from the Black Ace squad and gets to sit on the bench and maybe go far in the playoffs.
You never know. It would not surprise me.
That's pretty much all I have. I really appreciate you coming on the podcast with us. Really quick, if our listeners are listening and they're interested in some Callaway product, what is your preferred way that they get hooked up with some Callaway clubs?
Yeah, just find, your local golf course, wherever you golf the most, or, your favorite spot nearby. And, if they have a Callaway staffer, they're great. If not, any professional PGA of Canada or America can help you out. And whether that's, teaching you more about the product or being able to demo some, and then hopefully get you fit into what suits you best. But yeah.
Awesome, Josh. Well, thanks so much for joining us on the New Nine podcast. We'll send it to you when it's all done. And we really appreciate it. Hopefully you guys are golfing in Ontario sooner than later. Fingers crossed.
Things look good. It might be next week. Again, I've heard a lot of might be's and maybes, but we'll see. Again, we're praying for it because, again, PGA of Canada, Golf Ontario, everyone's done such a good job at, making sure it's safe. And we're really keeping our fingers crossed that they do change it up soon.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Josh. We appreciate it. We'll stay in touch.
Thanks, Brandon. Have a good one.